And welcome back to the cross-examination in court of the nurse Lucy Letby. Now before we start today, just as a reminder, Lucy Letby is currently standing trial accused of the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 10 others at the Countess of Chester neonatal unit. She has pled not guilty to all charges. Today is day 3 of the cross-examination in court of Lucy Letby. Nicholas Johnson, KC for the prosecution, is continuing to cross-examine and is asking Lucy Letby questions in the case of Child C. Mr. Johnson says text messages were exchanged between Letby and her colleague Jennifer Jones-Key between 11:01 and 11:09 p.m. Letby says she does not accept she was in room 1 at the time of Child C's collapse. She says she has no memory of it. Nurse Sophie Ellis had said she was in room 1 at the time, and Letby said in police interview based on that she was indeed in room 1. Letby says she disputes that, as she has no memory of it. Do you dispute being born? Mr. Johnson asks. No, Letby replies. But you have no memory of it? Letby replies, no. Letby is asked why she let a Band 4 nursery nurse look after her designated baby. Letby says it's not unusual for Band 4 nurses to assist her in her duties. Letby, I have no memory of that. Nicholas Johnson, did you have something better to do? Letby, no. Mr. Johnson says the text at 11:01 p.m. sent by Letby to Jennifer Jones-Key meant she must not have been in a clinical area and would not have had time to feed her designated baby in room 3. Letby, I can't answer that. Mr. Johnson says it took her out of the nursing area. Letby said she would have been in the doorway of the unit. Mr. Johnson says Melanie Taylor in evidence described Letby as cool and calm. Letby does not dispute that. She disputes saying to Melanie Taylor that Child C had had a Braddy, as she has no memory of it. Notes by Dr. Catherine Davis are shown to the court for Child C's collapse. At the time of arrival, quote, chest compressions in progress, occasional intermittent gasps noted, unable to pass ET tube as cords ++. The court hears the cords were swollen. Mr. Johnson asks Letby if it was a theme that when doctors went to intubate they had difficulties with swollen cords and/or bleeding. Letby accepts that was the case. She denies putting anything down Child C's throat. Mr. Johnson, do you agree something caused Child C's stomach to dilate before the collapse? Letby says the stomach dilation could have been caused by the neopuff resuscitation. Letby is asked if she had seen the kind of decline as seen by Child C before. Letby says she has, but not the way Child C clinged to life. Nicholas Johnson, you enjoyed the aftermath of this, didn't you? Letby, no. Why were you so keen to spend time with Child C's family as they cradled their dying child? Letby, I don't agree with that. I wasn't there a lot of the time. Letby disputes being repeatedly in the family room afterwards, adding, quote, I don't recall my colleague having to pull me out of there. She disputes the statement made by her colleague. Letby is asked what useful function she was contributing to the family during the dreadful situation they were going through. Letby said she cannot recall, other than gathering the mementos, which is a 2-person job. Letby says she would have to see the bereavement checklist charts to see if there was anything she had co-signed, as otherwise she does not recall and has no memory. The judge asks if hand and footprints are collected when the baby is still alive. Letby replies they can be, or after they have passed. Letby denies that she was enjoying what was going on. Mr. Johnson now moves on to the case of Child D. Letby's defence statement said she did not believe she had any involvement with Child D until the baby girl's collapse. Letby says she was affected by Child D's death, as were all the staff on the unit. In police interview, Letby said she could not recall Child D. Letby recalls looking after 2 babies in room 1 on the night of June 21st, 22nd. Caroline Oakley was the designated nurse for Child D and the baby in room 2. Letby accepts from time to time she would have been alone in room 1 as Caroline Oakley split her time caring for the 2 babies between the 2 rooms. Part of a statement from Child D's mother is read out. Letby disputes she was the nurse who held a phone to Dr. Brunton's ear while resuscitation efforts were going on. Letby says she can recall there was such an incident as it was talked about after the event. She agrees it happened, but she disagrees it was her who made the phone call. Mr. Johnson asks about a series of Countess nursing staff's descriptions of the unusual skin discoloration and an odd rash. Some of them said it was something they had not seen before. Letby says she does not dispute the staff's descriptions. Nicholas Johnson: do you still not remember Child D? Letby: I didn't recall at the time of my police interview, no. Do you remember her now? Yes. Do you remember the circumstances surrounding her death? No. Letby messaged a colleague on June 22nd. Child D came out in this weird rash looking like overwhelming sepsis. Letby said she had not seen the type of rash before, but she had seen something similar in her training years before. The message added, quote, then collapsed and had full resus, so upsetting for everyone. Parents absolutely distraught, dad screaming. Mr. Johnson asks if Letby was lying to police when she said she didn't remember Child D. Letby replies, no. Letby's text message added, quote, Andrew Brunton and Liz Newby said it'll probably be investigated. Well, it's happened and that's it. Got to carry on. Mr. Johnson said he had earlier asked if that was Letby's reaction to Child D's death. Letby replies, I don't think it was meant in the context you are suggesting. We've got to move forward. It's not meant to be any insensitivity to the parents or Child D. Mr. Johnson asks about the Facebook search for Child D's mother on June 25th, 2015. He asks how she remembers the name of Child D's mother if she did not recall Child D in police interview in 2018. Letby says she recalled the name of the mother in June 2015. Nicholas Johnson: you have got a good memory for names? Letby: yes. You carry them in your head? Yeah. Would you say you've got a good memory? Yeah. Letby is asked about messages she exchanged with Minna Lapalainen on June 26th, in which she said, quote, what I have seen has really hit me tonight. Minna suggests a counsellor for Letby. Letby, quote, I can't talk about it now. I can't stop crying. The reply suggests Letby take time off and consider if she should be at work during this time. Letby replies she has to keep carrying on working after saying, quote, I just have to let it all out. Nicholas Johnson: this was a very memorable time of your life, wasn't it? Letby: yes. Messages between Letby and a colleague are exchanged. The colleague said there was something odd about what had happened. Letby is asked if what do you mean was what she really thought as per her response. Nicholas Johnson: were you worried that people were starting to put 2 and 2 together? Letby: no. Letby had messaged, quote, odd that we lost 3 in different circumstances. Lucy tells the court the circumstances were different. The colleague, quote, I dunno, were they that different? Ignore me, I'm speculating. The colleague says there was talk of doing a joint post-mortem for 3 babies who had died. Letby searched for the father of Child D on October the 3rd, 2015. You didn't really forget Child D, did you? Letby: I didn't recall specific details in interview. Mr. Johnson says Facebook does not archive the name searches beyond a certain number, so every time Letby searched a name, it would be from memory, and Letby accepts that. Letby says Child D did not have appropriate treatment at the start of her life, and that may have had an impact on her later in life. Nicholas Johnson: the lack of antibiotics early on don't cause an air embolus, do they? Letby replies, no. Letby is asked if Caroline Oakley's notes showed Child D was stable prior to the collapse. Do you accept the evidence that Child D's designated nurse in room 1, Caroline Oakley, was on a break when Child D collapsed? Letby says she cannot recall. I cannot say either way because I don't know. Do you want to make any further comment about it? No. Letby accepts that if Caroline Oakley was on a break, the other nurse in room 1 was herself. Catherine Percival Ward had also given evidence saying Caroline Oakley was on a break. Mr. Johnson tells the court. Nicholas Johnson: do you accept that Caroline Oakley was on a break? Letby: yes. The neonatal schedule is shown to the court. Mr. Johnson says there is nothing for Letby's name between 1 a.m. and 1:30, the latter when child D collapsed. A blood gas record is shown for child D at 1:14 a.m. Nicholas Johnson: that was done by you, wasn't it? Letby: I don't know. Nicholas Johnson: that's your writing, isn't it? Letby: it could be. Mr. Johnson asserts it is. Letby: it looks like my writing, yes. Mr. Johnson asked why it isn't signed by her. It's just an oversight, like the next line which also isn't signed. It's an error. Observations for child D are shown, including readings at 1:15 a.m, and it is signed by Caroline Oakley. Mr. Johnson says Caroline Oakley had told the court she got those details for the 1:15 a.m. observation, quote, from the girls. Letby says she does not remember that bit of evidence. Letby says she does not recall who was looking after child D when Caroline Oakley was on her break. An infusion chart is shown where child D is given a saline bolus. Letby says the handwriting in the date and time started column is likely to be hers. Did you take the opportunity while Caroline was out to sabotage child D? No. Mr. Johnson says you were standing over her when the alarms went off, weren't you? I don't recall. Mr. Johnson says who the candidate could have been. One of the nurses says she wasn't there in evidence. Another is Catherine Percival Ward, and Letby agrees she could have been there. Another nurse is discounted. Letby says she cannot recall if it was her who was in room 1. A fluid balance chart is shown to the court, with the note, quote, oral secretions plus plus. Letby says the handwriting could be hers. Letby said it could have been something she had documented alongside Caroline Oakley. Mr. Johnson suggests Letby was babysitting child D. Letby adds she cannot comment if she had been in nursery room 1 throughout. The neonatal schedule is shown to the court. Letby denies she has ever falsified paperwork to make it look like she was doing one activity at one time when doing another. The schedule shows Letby was involved in giving medications to child D before the second collapse at 3 a.m. Nicholas Johnson: do you remember that? Letby: no. An infusion chart for child D is made by Letby and Caroline Oakley at 3:20 a.m. Nicholas Johnson: child D died because you injected her with air, didn't you? No. No, I did not give her air. Letby said she was looking after other babies, not just child D. Lucy Letby: I tried to be as cooperative as I could be to police in interview. Letby asks for a break. Mr. Johnson says he just requires to tidy up something which should take 2 minutes in the case of child C. He refers to the bereavement checklist. Letby says hand and footprints were taken before death in certain cases. Mr. Johnson says the checklist is, quote, for staff following neonatal death. The judge says there will be an early lunch break and the court will resume at 1:45 p.m. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here very briefly and explain to people what has taken place. Basically, shortly before the interval, Lucy Letby requested a break. The judge said they were going to take an early lunch, and then they did set a time for the trial to recommence. But then as that time got closer, the judge then said that there would be a delay to the start of the afternoon proceedings and it would be put back to around 2:30. Then as 2:30 arrived, the judge came back into the courtroom with Lucy Letby not taking the witness stand but standing in the dock. And it states the following here. The judge, Mr. Justice James Goss, has entered the courtroom. The judge is informing members of the jury the trial will not resume today. He says the adjournment is for reasons that should not concern them. The next day the trial will be held, as planned, will be Wednesday, May the 24th. So there we are, an early end to proceedings today, with court due to sit again on Wednesday, May the 24th. As always, if you are new to the channel and you wish to keep up to date with the trial of the Nurse Lucy Letby, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below this video and also give it a like before you leave. Many thanks for joining me for this video. I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.